This is the Transparency Podcast Show.
Jessie McGrath, and I have been a deputy district attorney for Los Angeles County for the last 35 years. So
Okay.
that's
When you're 20.
I transitioned on the job. I guess it was 8 years ago now, and so it's been a great job, and they've been actually really good towards me and my whole transition and stuff. But it's it was kind of a shock when I finally realized I was trans, and it was kind of a shock to everybody around me.
So when you say it's kind of shocked, though, that mean like you don't show any sign, or let's just go back to maybe to your younger self, like in your 20s. Do you feel anything different, like in the gender?
Oh, I knew as a girl when I was a young child. I mean, I got in trouble in kindergarten for going to take nap time with the other girls. I was told I couldn't do that, and I was like, well, why? I'm with my friends, and it was so it was very early on in me, and I just really didn't know what it was, But there were, I had a silk slip that I had found in one of my relatives' old house in an old trunk that was, and so I kept that hidden, and I would wear that in my room at night at times. I knew it was there, and when I was in college, I actually went to a therapist, and it was for a number of issues, and I was trying to get out that I was a girl, and I just never could say those words.
Yeah.
But as I got a little older, I ended up finding ways to fit in and everything, and I grew up for most of my life in Colorado, but when I was a junior in high school, I moved to a very, very, very small town in Nebraska. We have like 65 people. I had 33 people in my high school graduating class.
Wow.
And so being 6'2" and being fairly athletic, I was told I was joining the football team, so I ended up becoming a 3-sport letter person, the vice president of the student council, leading the school play. I mean, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And I was trying to fit in, but I still had that secret and occasionally taking my mom's makeup and doing my eyes,
Okay.
And then I ended up going to law school, and I ended up getting married in law school.
Okay, so when you got married, is it to a woman?
Yes.
And did she knew anything about your Jessie side?
No, because I never could discuss it with anybody, and so there were a few times in the marriage when she was gone, and the kids were all out of the house, and I would put on one of her dresses, and I would use some of her makeup, and do my eyeliner, and but I kept pushing it away,
Right.
that it was wrong, that it was not, it was sinful, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's related to many people, including myself. Like when I first felt that way, I, like you said, I didn't know what's that feeling about. And at first, I just thought I might have some gay issue, put it that way, right? And I didn't tell anyone as well. And so I think that's a norm. That's most of people's us girls' journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To me, I tell people the hardest person to come out being trans to was myself, because I didn't want, I couldn't see myself that way. I mean, I would envision at times, yes, but I always made it go away. I mean, there was a time when my ex-wife got a job in Colorado, and I was still in LA working in the DA's office, and I got some I got some camisole or something from Big Lots and some makeup, and and wore that and stuff. And then, I had to purge that eventually, but I couldn't throw it away my house because then somebody would know about the transvestite DA, and I could just see. And so it really was there, and it was really there pretty hard, but I was always managed to make it go away.
Okay, so when you mentioned go away, because I personally have that experience before, like try to, because I date girls before, and I was thinking, okay, I got married at late 20s, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe this feeling will go away, which it did for a short time. And then it came back actually stronger. Do you have that experience? Like when you try to make it go away, and when it comes back, it kind of comes back feeling stronger than the last time?
Yeah. And until the last one hit at the end of 2014, and then it was like,
you can't hide anymore, right?
Why does this keep coming back? Why do I keep feeling this way? Why is this? And so at that point, I finally got online and started doing some research and looking, and I was like, oh my God, this explains so much.
Wow.
This is like, it was like a mass revelation. And I ended up, going from buying sporting stuff on Amazon to breast forms and bras and makeup and dresses. And suddenly it was like back so hard. And so it took me a while, but I finally got online. I looked around and read a lot of literature on the stuff. And it was like, wow, it all makes sense now. It all kind of came together. And so the first person I came out to was a cousin of mine who I grew up with. She's only a couple months younger than I. And so we grew up on my grandparents' farm a lot. We were together a lot. And I got the courage up, I think it was shortly after Christmas. And I asked her if I could tell her something if she promised she would never, ever, ever, in a million years, tell anybody at all. This is like the most top-level secret. And I sent her some pictures.
Oh. And what's her reaction?
And she goes, very beautiful, great skin, and that's you? ? And she goes, wow, these are great. How long ago did you have these taken? And it was like, last week. She was so great because when I told her, she was like, oh, it all makes sense now. So it wasn't only me. It was one of the people I was closest to in the world understood it.
Right. So because I heard this thing recently because somehow it says our society, because we have so many single parents, for example. I'm not sure if your family tradition, are they? Because for my personal experience, my dad wasn't really around growing up. Like he came here like when I was 3. So the documentary I was watching, or some YouTube video, they were saying our society, because of that reason, and a lot of male are more feminine these days, or missing the the masculine part of it. So I'm not sure if that's what I heard. So how's your family react to your transition?
Well,
are they surprised?
My parents got divorced when I was 8, but my dad, but I was a girl before they got divorced. Right. So I'm like, I don't think it's that part of it. But they got divorced when I was fairly young, but I was always a sensitive kid, and I always emotional, and it was, and that's why I think my cousin, she goes, it's so obvious now. But my mom had passed away. And she passed away in 2011. And so in 2014, we were going to go back to the farm and go through my mom's stuff, because my stepdad had never gone through her things, because he wanted us to do it, and he wasn't ready for it. So, 3 years later, we made plans to go back in the summer, and then he got sick, and then he ended up passing away in September.
Wow.
And so now I'm back at the farm with my brother and my
Mhm.
sister, and we're, having to go through things. And
Mhm.
there's my mom's clothes, which I remember borrowing, and her makeup's still there.
Mhm.
And so it just hits me.
Mhm.
And I ended up taking a bunch of my mom's clothes back with me and stuff.
Mhm.
And it was, that's when I did that. So, unfortunately, my mom, who always knew she had a daughter, I think she really did. I think she
Yeah.
found some of my stuff. I think she had to have
Right.
known.
Yeah.
But so she never got to meet Jessie. But my dad, who's now 85 years old,
Mhm.
he's actually been really, really good.
Good.
He sends me birthday cards, Christmas
Wow,
cards,
that's so sweet.
to my daughter, and
Mhm.
writes incredibly beautiful messages
Mhm.
in there for me. And so he's really, really good about it.
Yeah, my mom actually just passed away 2 months ago.
Oh, I'm so
So
sorry.
yeah, no worries. So what you just said is really reflect. I can make the connection. I understand, and once she passed away, I suddenly realized a lot of things. Like, I feel that she built this invisible bridge for me, and once she's gone, I can see it clearly now.
It's so
So
amazing. My kids
yeah.
say, "Oh my God, you're becoming grandma."
Yeah, so that's why I can relate it to you. Um, so besides that, when you transition, mentioned at work, at your DA career, did how did that go?
It was I wasn't the first DA to transition. There had actually been somebody on the same floor that I was on
Hmm.
a couple of years before me,
Right.
and so in talking with one of my coworkers who I first kind of came out to,
Hmm.
he said, "Well, she went around and talked to everybody kind of individually," and he
Hmm.
goes, "I really thought that was a great thing." So I went around to the people I was working with and met with them individually and showed them some pictures and told them what
Yeah.
was going on, and they were all surprised, obviously. And then apparently one person that I talked to um, was horrified that I was going to be allowed to use the women's restroom, and so she went to
Oh.
HR and wanted to know what she could do to stop.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up getting a call from HR
Yeah.
saying, "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to, but we've heard a couple rumors, and we just want to let you know that we're here for you if you
Hmm.
need us for anything." And I was
Right.
like, "Oh, you mean about my transition? Yeah, that's not a rumor. I'm doing that, and I think we should probably get together and talk about what the
Hmm.
timelines are going to be. Or
Right.
when's a good time for you? Can I come down now?"
Hmm. Wow. So, and what happened after that? Did they?
I went down, I met with them. I told
Mm-hmm.
them that I had a court date for my name and gender change in
Mm-hmm.
another month, and that we were in the process of moving from an office building over to the Hall of Justice. And so that
Right.
was scheduled for like June 15th, which was
Mm-hmm.
like 2 weeks after my name and gender change. So I was like, well, hey, we're moving to the new building. Why don't we just make that the official day?
Mm-hmm.
And really, so when I moved into the new building, everything was Jesse.
Wow.
They were
That's
really
so
good about
cool.
stuff. It was, for the
Yeah.
most part, I mean, every now and then there's so many systems in the county.
Yes.
I think even last year I came across one where it had my dead name on there still.
Oh.
But it's been, they were actually really, really good about everything.
Hmm. What about in courtroom? From what we see on TV, it's very dramatic. And I've been to a jury duty, so it's not as shown as TV or like Judge Judy, as it shows authority. So when after you transition, when you start going to the courtroom, do you feel that authority is demolished from anyone in the courtroom?
No,
Do you feel anything?
I've had great interactions with judges,
Mhm,
opposing counsel. I don't try cases. I haven't tried a
mhm.
case in
Right.
over 20 years,
Okay.
because of the type of work that I was doing. I did a lot of cil work,
Civil work.
suing
Okay.
corporations and
Right.
businesses, and
Sure.
so it was. Everybody was really pretty good about stuff,
Okay.
and
That's good.
actually, a couple of times I had like camera crew go into the court with
Mm.
me because they were doing some stuff on things. And
Yeah.
but I no I think I feel more empowered
Mm-hmm.
now being myself than
Right.
than I ever did
Yes. Yes.
previously.
Yes. I can feel you as on this as well because I was a shy guy before. I was a shy person, and now I'm just feel like it's a blooming, like aligned to what I feel inside, and I can do better.
Oh
Somehow.
yeah, for me, it's been an incredible change.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had 213 friends on Facebook,
Yes.
on my old one, and I think I have between friends and followers like 6,000 people on Facebook now. So
Right.
I interact so much more with
Yeah.
people.
Your online preference is very creative. I notice because I seen you in the kitchen cooking, showing cooking show, and then you also play guitar, right?
Yeah.
And then the clock walk. That's
Like the
real
cloak walk, yeah.
that's
We
your
used to,
famous one. Yeah.
oh, that was always fun because it was nothing funner than having like 15 drunk
Mhm.
hot gals in lingerie
Mhm.
stuff walking down a couple blocks on Hollywood Boulevard. it was such an amazing time and experience.
Mhm.
I absolutely loved that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I sometimes do cooking with Jessie on my Facebook Live, and
Yes.
we had the Slayevich sisters, which was a Russian group of Russian spies comedy group
Mhm.
that I did with my roommates, and so yeah, I try to be a little bit creative,
Yeah.
and I have kind of two personas. Like
Yeah.
on Instagram, I have two Instagrams. I have one that's
Mm.
my work Instagram that
Same
is
here.
is like mostly for professionally
Yes.
related things. I
Yes.
try
Same
not
here.
to get too, and then I have my cloak
Friends,
walk
family.
Jesse
Yeah.
one. So and that's
Yeah.
got a lot more followers.
So I see you bring your creativity onto your body, your tattoo, your ink. Do you design all of those tattoos on yourself?
Um, I have a very, very amazing tattoo artist who's over
Mm-hmm.
in on York Boulevard in Highland Park. He's been doing it for like 30 years, and he's tattooed half the porn stars, half the rock stars in LA.
Okay.
So
Wow.
he's one of the Inked magazine icons, and so
Mm-hmm.
he and I work together on
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff. And I tell him what I want, and he kind of comes up with an idea. Like my favorite one is it's kind of the gothic
Mm.
uh, blind justice.
Yeah.
Can I?
Or yeah. I don't know. Or we can answer a
Can
photo
that
or something.
can that be seen?
Yeah.
So that is my favorite one right there.
Wow.
And I got a couple of different
Mm-hmm.
pictures online, and kind of told him the idea that I wanted, and then he drew that on my body.
Okay. And this
And
is
so,
all collection throughout many years, right? Including your old self, correct?
probably only most of these are 5 years or less.
Really?
Yeah,
So you don't have any tattoo
I had
prior to transition? Yeah. So that's what I asked because I want to ask.
I had
one.
one.
I want to ask one very interesting question because I remember some people that they have a tattoo prior their life, and now they transition. They want to get rid of the one that's prior. So you say you have one. Is it still there, or you you got rid of it too after you
It got
transition?
changed. My tattoo artist came up with this great concept.
Uh-huh.
So when I first saw him,
What did you have before? I'm curious.
it was a very
Can you
small
describe?
tribal sun right in my
Uh-huh.
stomach area.
Okay. And then now he changed
And so when I went and saw him, I told him I wanted 5 roses on my side, and it ends up going from like my hip all the way up to my
uh-huh.
back, and so
Okay.
there's the 5 roses, but it's like a really giant side piece,
Mhm.
and it took I think 3 settings to get
And then
everything
go
done
all the
on it.
way to the front, covered as sun.
No, so I told him I
Okay.
wanted 5, and then I
Mhm.
said I wanted a colored rose
Okay.
to signify my transition.
Yeah.
And so he um, said, "Yeah, I can do that." He
Mhm.
goes, "But we've spent a lot of time together. I kind of know who you are. I kind of understand some stuff."
Yes.
So what I was thinking of
Mhm.
is we cover up that one that you have here
Right.
and put a lotus blossom,
Okay.
because it grows out of something chaotic and
Right.
muddy
Yes.
and
Yes.
becomes something beautiful. And that
Right.
transitions over into a colorful, amazing
Yeah.
flower that's not
We,
like a regular flower. It's a special design type flower, and then it's unique and unusual, and then we incorporate the serpent and original sin and the apple, and so I ended up with this huge other piece that covers from my hip all the way up. And so it's to signify my transition. So all of my tattoos on my right side are black ink, and all of the tattoos on my left side are colored ink.
I just noticed that. How about the one in the middle of your chest?
Well, the one I have in the center here is black ink, and the one I have in the center on my back is colored ink.
Wow. So interesting.
So
Yeah. So is it hard? Meaning, like, do you do long sections? Doing
I generally will do 2-hour, 3-hour sessions with him.
Yeah. Okay.
And some of this one was like 5 sessions to fully get through on the side there. Some of them are an hour. So
Okay.
it just depends on what the complexity is. But almost all of them tell a different story. So like on my back shoulder here, I have a unicorn. But it's not just any unicorn. It's the unicorn that my mom and my aunt used for their stores, the Unicorn Boutique. And it has my aunt's ashes in it.
Okay. Wow.
So
that's sweet. So now we're gonna talk, since we're talking about your body. So we're gonna go to your gender affirmation surgery.
I like to call it my genital correction surgery,
Okay,
because they needed to be corrected, and
Yeah.
now everything is just hunky dory.
Yeah. So you say you transition about your short time, right? And you move on and do the forward to the surgery.
I did the express transition because I realized I was old. I was 53 when I came to my understanding.
Right.
And so I knew I was a late in life transitioner. I knew I didn't, I knew I was going to do it because, as my therapist says, yes, it gets stronger as you get older and it never goes away. And I'm like, so this shit's not going away ever?
Yeah,
okay.
yes,
so,
yes.
well, then what do I do?
So if you don't mind, because we have Dr. Sinclair on the show before, and he's more focused on the,
The colonic
yeah,
vaginoplasty.
colonic. Did you do that kind?
No.
I'm
I did the
curious.
penile inversion. And I did that. It was 18 months into my transition. And that's because the first 6 months I was like, oh, I'm not going to do anything like that. No, I'm not going to do that. I like that. I'm not going to. And then it was like, I think it was, shortly after I had my FFS and breast augmentation at 6 months. And then I started looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, that's not what I want to see. And so that started my 1 year of having to get electrolysis and other stuff for the surgery and stuff. And it was then that I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
So after you did the surgery, did that change your relationship lifestyle? Or people who you date change gender-wise, sexually?
Well, that kind of changed right before the surgery. I had been going out with a woman for about 6 years, right before my surgery, and
as Jessie, right? As your old self, or as
I started dating her as my old self,
and
then I became Jessie, and so she stayed with me for about that 18 months after till right after the surgery, when I ended up kind of breaking up with her, because when I started out, she was pretty supportive for the most part. I mean, she did tell me that I would make an ugly woman, and I was like, okay, but at least I'll be a woman. Okay, that's the key focus on this. Is
right.
I don't care. I'm gonna be what I'm gonna be. I just get to be me. And then she wanted to make me promise that I would not be attracted to men.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fairly well versed at this point in statistics and other things
Right.
in dealing with what trans people go through.
Mhm.
And I knew that there was a fairly good percentage of trans women who, in going through their transition,
Mhm.
change who they're attracted to sexually,
Yes.
and they become attracted to men.
Yeah.
Or if they were attracted to men previously, they become attracted to
Or
women.
both.
It,
Yeah.
it goes all different ways.
Directions, yeah.
And so when she asked me that, I was like, look, I'm trying to be as honest with you as I can in this whole
Yes.
process. And I said,
Right.
I can't tell you that I won't do that because I don't know. I don't know if I am in
Mhm.
one of the percentage that does that. And so
So I'm the same way because before transitioning, I never thought about I will like men, and after transition, I only date men, which I stopped attracted to women in that way, romantic way. So what happened after you broke up with her? Did you found
so
somebody?
and part of the reason, I mean, I don't think she really liked women that all that much. So as I became
Mm,
more and more feminine, I
right.
mean, she wouldn't like touch my breasts, which,
Yeah. Okay.
look, I'm a woman. You're my sex partner. You're supposed to touch them, okay? And it's like, so
Okay.
she was not into. Oh, I have no doubt she loved me,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think she was attracted to me at that point. And
Yeah,
then
not sexually attracted to a woman.
and
Yeah.
she had always said that the one hard line in the sand was that she didn't want me to be attracted to men. And so when I started becoming attracted to guys,
Mhm.
and I I couldn't do that. I could not say
Mhm.
I'm not.
Right.
And
Yes.
so that's why I ended up breaking up with her. And
Okay.
that was like 4 weeks after my surgery, and
Okay.
then I lost my virginity 2 weeks after that.
Wow. That fast? I thought you have to wait until 6 months or something. That's what I
Well,
heard.
the doctor said 8 weeks, but
8 weeks? Oh, so
but
why am I getting that 6 months from maybe?
I was
Kind of think I have to be a lady monk for 6 months.
I was putting dilators in there, and so I thought, well, what's the difference?
Exactly. So now you made a good point.
And so I ended up losing it to another trans woman who I
Oh,
dated for about 4 months, 5
okay.
months.
But she's not, doesn't have the bottom surgery yet?
She had not had bottom
Okay,
surgery.
got it.
And she never will because she passed away a couple of years ago,
Oh,
unfortunately.
so many people pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
what some of my tattoos are,
Wow.
memorials to my friends who've
That's
passed.
gonna
so.
grow. You're gonna have more. I'm sure, right? More ink.
Well, because I lose too many friends. It's
Yeah.
something that's, not good in the
Okay.
community. And
Yes.
either through the violence that
Mm-hmm.
where they're
Violence,
killed, or
hate crime,
the self-violence
yeah,
and the
suicide.
suicide.
Mm-hmm.
It's truly
Or
heartbreaking.
yeah, what is it? Alcohol abuse, drug abuse. Those are also a larger number of the
And
we
then
lost friends.
and then I
Yeah.
think there's also a lot of medical problems because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
trans people tend to avoid going to the doctor.
In a legit ways, right? They
Yeah.
self-medicate.
And they don't want to see a medical doctor for things
Mm.
because they're afraid of whatever. And now there's some states that are trying to make it even illegal to get
Mm-hmm.
medical treatment for being
Mm-hmm.
trans. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, it's gone suddenly from not letting, wanting trans people to use the bathroom to not wanting trans people to live,
Mhm.
and take away our medical care. And that's truly a frightening thing that's going on right now.
Yeah. We've been talking about a lot of politics stuff. I know you just went through a legislation bill, and it's in your hometown, right?
Back in my home state of Nebraska, yeah. It was at the end of last year. Um, as I was seeing the increasing number of anti-trans legislation being proposed around the country, I knew I had to do something.
Yeah.
And so I'd kind of made a pledge to myself that I was going to go to one state and
Hmm.
try to fight it. A few years ago, but I think it was back in 2016, I went to Texas
Yeah.
to lobby against, I think it was SB 6, which was the bathroom bill.
Okay.
And so I went with a couple of friends to the Capitol and did some lobbying there. And so I just knew that I had to get involved. I did not think I was going to be going to my home state to do this. That was not on my bingo card for
Right.
2023.
Yeah, it's been very wild and crazy, and just like I said, I usually don't talk about politics, and but this time I decided to open up because I feel this show, this platform, has the responsibility to have another voice, our voice, because I've been seeing a lot of not just the mainstream news, but a lot of people that I kind of follow as a business, and they also has a different opposite view, and so that's why I decided to do this special episodes. And so you want to kind of describe and let the audience know if someone doesn't know what this bill is about.
Sure. And the reason this bill
Mm,
came to my attention
right,
was my former insurance agent from my hometown back in Nebraska, who's like 85 years old. He contacted me because they also did a sports and
mm,
bathroom
right,
one for schools. And he was really opposed to that because he's a coach and he
right,
knows he just wanted to let kids be kids and play.
right.
And so he contacted me because of course they knew family knows I'm trans, and so he alerted me to the two bills. And so I looked at it, saw that it was coming up almost immediately for hearing.
Okay.
And so I took some time off, went back to Nebraska. I testified against this bill, which is LB 574.
Mm-hmm.
The sports one was LB 575, but it never made it out of committee. Uh,
Okay.
LB 574, as it was introduced,
Right.
banned gender affirming care,
Mm-hmm.
any surgical procedures,
Right.
puberty blockers, cross sex hormones, and I think to the extent even it was no therapy. It was
Wow.
very, very damaging to trans youth's access to healthcare, and it was similar to bills that were introduced in other states.
Yeah. So does this bill only limited to the child or
It was anyone under 19 because
okay?
Nebraska is a unique state in a lot of ways. The age of majority there is actually 19,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and so and it's also a unicameral. They're
Mm-hmm.
a single Senate, I guess you would say, but we call it the legislature.
Yeah.
There's 49 state senators, and that's it. There's no conference committees going back and forth between House and Senate versions of bills.
Mm-hmm.
It's all solely contained within that single body.
Okay. Okay, I see. So, so when you went back there, and what's your experience like? Because I know it's your hometown, and then some. I'm sure you have a different feeling because you kind of like, why is this happening at your hometown, right?
Why is
So
it
when you,
happening in my home state? Yeah,
yeah,
because Nebraskans, you have to understand how Nebraska came to be. These were pioneer, rugged individualists, people
mm,
who broke the mold, who came west, and they homesteaded, and that's why I'm in Nebraska, was from Nebraska, is my great great grandmother homesteaded in 1887, and
uh-huh,
so there was always a mixture of different communities, and we all kind of got along. So I didn't see this really coming
mm-hmm,
out of Nebraska, but as we've seen so often in a lot of places, there has been a turn to the far right,
mm-hmm,
and some people will call it Christian nationalism. I call
right,
it religious extremism,
right,
because they're trying to enforce religious beliefs,
yeah,
and you know it's it's something that was happening in a lot of places, and I just didn't think it was going to happen to Nebraska. And I really love the Nebraska legislature. I worked in
Yeah.
the legislature as a legislative aide when I was in college, so
Yes.
I love the unique system that it has. So it was extremely frustrating to get there, and seeing the number of people who were there opposing
Mm.
this bill
Okay.
for the day that they had the hearings. And they basically allocated 3 hours for proponents and 3 hours for opponents.
Wow. So we have. I know you document the entire part of the journey. So we're gonna play some for our audience to see.
Yeah, as you could see,
Yeah.
the crowd got bigger and bigger throughout the day. And for some reason, this gal decided she wanted to punch one of the state patrol officers. And there was another man that was getting arrested, who I believe they said was drunk or disorderly and wouldn't leave. And so it got kind of heated. And there were people who were supporting the bill who were walking around with firearms. So because Nebraska allows open carry of firearms in the state capitol. And then this is Senator Kavanaugh and Senator Hunt and Senator Day, Senator Blood, all these people who I ended up getting to know, Senator Frederickson. These were the people who led the fight against this horrible bill. And this was right after.
All right.
This is right after they
So,
ended up
yeah.
losing.
As I have a question because when I see those clips, there's a lot of kids, like young adults or a teenager. Are they all? I don't think they're all trans people,
No,
huh?
they're not all trans. They're
Yeah.
gender non-conforming, part of the
Okay.
LGBTQ
Right.
community, or they're just strictly allies. There were people from a lot of different walks, but there were a lot of trans kids
Yeah.
who were there. In fact, trans kids testified against this bill,
Right.
including the daughter, who is now her son,
Mm.
of one of the state senators, Megan Hunt. Her son, Ash, testified against this bill, but yet they still voted to deny him health care.
Yeah, because it's kind of to me, it's kind of contradictory if they want to protect the kids or the children, but then you see the violent. I think that girl, it's pretty. She looks pretty young, so I don't think this is like protection or any sort of
Well, it's part of a national strategy that's
hmm
been put together
right.
by groups like the Alliance Defending Freedom,
hmm
the Family Research Council, and Focus on the Family, and
Right.
other groups like
hmm
that are funding this. And they have put out a narrative that trans youth healthcare is mutilization and sterilization.
mm
That is their catchphrase, and they're talking about it. They don't see the joy when somebody has a trans related surgery and how that makes them feel complete. They call it
mm.
mutilation, and
Wow.
it's horrible
Yes.
because this is not mutilation.
hmm
And they say that puberty blockers are not reversible, which most cases they are.
Yeah.
They talk about, well, what if they regret the decision? which is the same thing that they say about
Yeah.
women who want to have their tubes tied or their tubes removed. Well, what
Right.
if you change your mind? It's like, no, I know who I am. I know what I want.
Yeah.
And these trans kids know who they are and know what they want. I've talked to so many trans kids, and I've talked to parents, and there's all this perception and misinformation that
Yes.
these are liberal parents who are trying to trans their kids because they want to be some social status for having a trans child. And it's
Mhm.
so far from the truth. Almost all the parents that I talked to struggled with the
Right.
fact that their kid is trans, wondering what it is that they do,
Right.
seeking help from sources, and
Mm.
learning that the way to help them the best is to affirm them.
Yeah.
And for these state senators to want to use the power of government
Mm.
to dictate to these families who are struggling
Mhm.
what they can and can't do
Mhm.
is just outrageous. It is totally outrageous.
Yeah, because looking at that, the scene has a violent. When I look at it earlier, it made me feel really sad because as an immigrant, my parents want to come here for bigger opportunity for us to have a better education, and our country right now is not even close to that, and it's heartbreaking to seeing those kind of things happen. And
It truly
yeah,
is. The division that
right.
exists in this country. I mean, I was a Republican. And I guess I have been a registered Republican my whole life, and I was involved in politics from a very
Hmm.
young age. And so, I've seen it up close and personal. Now, the last 30 years, I was not involved in politics much because I had my job raising kids, and I didn't get
Hmm.
involved in that. I mean, for a large part of the time, I was married to a woman who was from the other party, and so it was like we kind of just canceled each other out. But I don't recognize the Republicans that are out there today. I don't recognize the vitriol and the hatred that they're spewing. They seem to think that because they have these Christian views, that everyone should be forced to live under that, and
Right.
that's not number one, the Christianity that I know, and that's not the
Yes.
Republicans that I know.
Yeah, because as as I post the show on the social media platform, I often get comments like, "Oh, I hope you find Jesus." "Oh, I hope something like that. And then I do respond in a friendly way. I say, "Well, if you really believe in Jesus, I'm not a Christian, but if you believe in Jesus, then he's telling you to love everyone, right? See,
That's what the message of God is supposed
right?
to be. Yeah, love
So
everyone, and
everyone, including everyone, not like straight, gay, or trans or
except with
non-trans.
some Christian extremists, they have to love you so much that they want to destroy you, and I don't
That's
understand that.
crazy.
It's like my stepmom still refuses to accept me. She
Mm,
doesn't accept my lifestyle choice, and it's like, this is not a lifestyle choice.
yeah,
Um, I mean, this is my identity. This is who I am.
right.
I am me 24/7, 365 days a year. And no, it's not a fad or a phase I'm going through. It's been 8
Yes.
years. No, I am not going to be anybody different than who I am.
Yeah. Besides, like, because you're 8 years, I'm 11 or so years, but we both know we've been feeling that way for decades, or
Oh, it
you
it
know what I
was
mean?
I knew
So
way, way, way before then,
right,
and
right.
it was the religious beliefs that I was raised and had that led me to believe that it was a sin, not
Mm,
knowing that, God is a beautiful, loving person,
mhm.
and and making me transgender was like a gift that
Yeah,
God gave me.
that's
And
right.
and I look at it as I spent a large part of my life denying
Mhm.
who I was, for thinking it was for God. And when I finally did embraced myself, life became so much incredibly better. I mean, it was like
Yeah,
I was
same here.
incredibly blessed.
Yeah, same here.
And I always say to Christians, it's like the verse, God, I formed you in the womb, I knew you before you were born. I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, thank you, and you made me this way, and I actually think
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing, and I've gotten to see life from different perspectives, and it
Yes.
gives me so much to be able to give back
Right.
because I've seen things in
Yes.
so many different ways.
Yes. So also we're gonna have another clip that you were interviewed by the local news news broadcast.
They're violating legislative norms in all these states to get these bills passed because, for whatever reason, they think this is a winning election issue. Well, it's not, because people are beginning to react and they're seeing that we are humans, that we deserve humanity, that we deserve medical care, and we don't deserve what happened in this building here today.
Okay, so did they interview any people in the core or just
Oh,
in the
no, it was
crowd?
actually kind of strange because I had been in the rotunda for a few minutes while everyone was hugging the senators, and
Mm,
and I decided to go out to the north um, steps to the Capitol because we were going to have a rally there,
right.
and there was not a whole lot of people there at the time. And I was talking with the head of social media for the ACLU Nebraska, and one of the reporters came up for
Uh-huh.
the local news station, and they just
Yeah.
asked him if he wanted to make a comment about what happened. He said no. He asked another one of the ACLU staffers if they wanted to do it, and she said no.
Uh,
And he goes, Jesse, do you want to? I'm like, sure, why not? And
okay.
so yeah, that's how I ended up on the news with that one. It was I just happened to be standing there.
Yeah, it's well, we need we need somebody in our community to be interview and have a different kind of voice, so that's good for you. And so next thing we want to talk about is healthcare, because you and I both know, if we don't have, if we stop receiving our medications, hormones, we as a person will probably become very, very imbalanced, depressions, and we can be ourselves. So if we put that, let's say, in a child, like anyone under 19.
Yeah, it's truly distressing,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, they're not just coming after
Right.
the trans youth healthcare. They're coming for all trans healthcare,
Mm-hmm.
and that's been made clear by um, the American Principles Project. They've started with youth healthcare
Mm-hmm. Right.
because they can start saying mutilation and sterilization,
Yes.
and then they can say anybody who supports that
Mm.
is a groomer or a pedophile.
Right.
So it's a way of targeting our community to
Mhm.
number one, say we're groomers, mutilators, sterilizers, all of the classic signs of targeting a minority group that you want to exterminate and you want to get
Right.
rid of. And so they're going to come after the trans health care for adults next. In Nebraska, the way the bill was originally written, it
Mhm.
prohibited the surgeries, the
Right.
blockers, and the cross-sex hormones and therapy, um, except for probably conversion therapy. That would probably be okay. What they did is when they got to the final vote,
Mhm.
um, I don't think they had enough votes for it, and so they sent it back one level to add an amendment that dramatically changed how it was going to do it.
Right.
They prohibited surgeries,
Uh-huh.
but they left determination and regulation of the rest of the healthcare to the chief medical officer of the state,
Obviously,
the doctor,
the
and
doctor.
then they added a 12-week abortion ban.
Wow.
They had a 6-week abortion ban that
Mm.
bill that had made it to the final round, but they couldn't end the filibuster on it, and so it died.
Mm.
And so in an effort to get this bill passed, they added a 12-week abortion ban to it. And so
So what
It
do you-
ended up
Mm.
getting enough votes
Okay.
to go back up, and so yes, they ended up. We lost by one vote. They had just enough votes to end the debate on it, and so it was able to be voted on and passed. And that leads us to where we're at now, which is we don't know
Right.
what
What?
trans youth healthcare is going to look like in Nebraska until October. We actually don't even know if the children who are currently receiving care
Right.
are grandfathered in and can
Mhm.
continue to do it. There's a lot of confusion in
Right.
relationship to it. Fortunately, the way they did the bill,
Uh-huh.
which is adding two unrelated things, abortion and
Right.
trans medical care are kind
Mm.
of really two separate issues.
Right.
And so the Nebraska Constitution requires that legislative bills be of a single subject. We have, say we, not we yet, but the Nebraska ACLU filed suit
Yeah.
last Tuesday against the state, challenging it that the bill is unconstitutional on the grounds that it
Mhm.
violated the single subject rule, and they're seeking an injunction. The abortion provisions of the law took effect immediately. The trans healthcare is waiting until October.
And what do you want to talk about? What do you think will happen, or the results? Will come out?
If there's applying current law and
Mm.
standards, I would think that it would be found unconstitutional as being two separate subjects. The proponents of the bill are claiming that it's not two separate subjects. It's the regulation of doctors and what medical care that they can give,
Yeah.
which is a really broad term, and that's not
Right.
how it was done. And the thing I think that kind of cooks them or kills them is that there's two separate titles.
Right.
So it's and one is abortion, one is the
Mhm.
about the kids on
The
that.
kids.
So I think it should get struck down.
Yeah.
If not, then they're going to have to challenge the trans healthcare portion of it and get an injunction against that before October.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that we're doing in other states.
Mhm.
In fact, Florida just yesterday or last
Mm.
night, I guess it was yesterday evening, had their law struck down as being unconstitutional
Right.
with a very well written opinion uh, talking about the evidence and other things that these people are bringing into these hearings is junk
Yeah.
and bogus and not backed by legitimate medical knowledge and,
Right. Right.
research. And that's one of the things that I talked about when I testified against the bill is that you're seeing the same people
Mm.
testifying against. There's only so many detransitioners who have horror stories,
Right.
and they have to move them from state to state. Some have been 11, 12, 13 times testifying at different states, 7 or 8,
Mm.
9. I mean, we did have one actual detransitioner from Nebraska
Oh, just one.
who did testify.
Mhm.
And she also testified, I think, in 5 or 6 other states. So
Mhm.
she became a part of the touring show that they have that goes from
Yeah.
state to state, saying
Right.
basically the same thing.
Mhm.
And in every state, there are literally hundreds
Yeah.
of trans kids
I
and
know.
families who are
Right.
saying, no, this is good. So it's definitely, if it gets looked at in an
Mhm.
independent light with somebody who is not running it through the filter of their religious beliefs and their belief that they have the right to dictate how others can live their
Right.
lives,
Mhm.
they don't survive scrutiny.
Yeah. So we have one more clip to show the audience. Is this like where is this taking place at? Like not location, but the timeline.
On
This
children.
was
Their goals,
me right
and it's
outside
an
the
avowed
Nebraska
goal,
State
it's a
Capitol
published
when
goal,
I
and it's what
was
they are
going there
saying
to
is that
try
they
to
want
lobby
to,
some of the senators. And
um,
I did manage to get
do
in
away with
and
all
spend about a
trans
half
people
hour with Senator
and
Murph
trans
Reapy,
Mhm.
who was the
the
vote that
ability
killed
to
the abortion
exist in
part.
society
Yeah.
as
And
a
he
trans
was kind of bought
individual.
off, I think,
And
by
so
the
this
12-week
year we've
abortion
seen
ban
14
to
Mhm.
vote
bills
for the two of them
strip
together. But Yeah, I was
trans
wearing my
kids
Nebraska
their right
National
to
Guard
receive gender
sweatshirt,
affirming healthcare.
T-shirt,
And
and
most of those are
it
challenged in
was,
federal court, but
you
it's
know, tough going back in
coming
there
from the same
and
group of
trying to
people.
talk to
Right.
people whose
The
minds are
Alliance
closed
Defending
and were
Freedom,
pretty well
the
made up.
Family Research
I did talk
Council,
with probably 3 or 4 different
um,
senators,
Americans
and
Defending, or the ADF.
for each of them, you know,
Alliance
they
Defending
had the
Freedom.
reasons
I don't know,
why
there's so many
they
different
wanted
groups
to
that
do
are
it,
out
but
there
none
right
of them were
now,
based on
and they are
anything that is,
organized and they are
you know,
together.
actually
They're all
factual.
from
Yes,
the Magna
and many of
Christian
them they
right
don't know any
sphere of
personally
things, and they have
knowing any
decided
trans
that
people,
they want to
so
make
they, they just
trans individuals the
misunderstood
target
like
of their
what you said here, like
2024
you don't
campaign,
want to
and
go
so
back to your
they've ramped it
closet.
up
You've
this year,
been
and they
feeling
have
this way
gone
for a
after
long
trans
time. You
kids.
can
But
go
make no
Look,
mistake about
there's
it,
no way
it's
that
not
I
just
could
kids.
ever
They want to eliminate
go
and
back
eradicate
to.
trans people.
It's like
Michael
no,
Knowles at the
it's
Conservative
I am who I
Action
am. I'm proud of who I
Conference
am. I
Yes.
love who
this
I am. I
year
feel
actually
incredibly
said we need
blessed
to
to be
eradicate
trans, and
transgenderism in all its
it's
forms. Then he backpedaled and said,
it's
"Oh, I
something
don't
that
mean
we
need
we
to
have
get
to
rid of
fight
trans
for
people, but
because
Right.
they have
if you
literally
eliminate
declared war,
transgenderism in
and
all its
the
forms, that means you
2024
eliminate
is
me."
going to be even worse
Right.
than 2023 was, which is incredibly worse than any year in history. So I'm pretty sure that there's been a decision made somewhere along the line. You can see it from what DeSantis is doing in Florida
Yes.
with what these other states are doing to pass these bills,
Right.
that the next round is
Mhm.
going to be targeting trans adults. And
Yes.
so they have stated an avowed goal. I mean, Michael Knowles was at the CPAC and stated that, you know, transgenderism needs to be eradicated in all its forms. And then, of course, he backtracked and said, well, I wasn't saying we eradicate trans people. I'm like, well,
Right.
if you're eradicating in all of its forms, isn't that kind of advocating
Yeah.
the people? Because I'm a form.
Yeah.
It's so, yeah, it is truly frightening. There's so many incredible parallels to 1933, 1934 Germany. If you look at what happened there, the Nazis began by targeting specific groups, and it didn't start with, you know, rounding everybody up into cattle cars and putting them into the gas chambers. It started slowly, and it started by targeting, in this case, the trans and gender nonconforming community of Berlin. And Magnus Hirschfeld, the doctor who studied this for years and years, had an incredible library. The first book burning by the Nazis was the trans library at his Institute of Sexology in Berlin. And so seeing what they're doing now, trying to ban books, trying to take away healthcare, trying to basically do away with any rights that we have to be able to transition. I mean, one of the incredible things that current law allows us to do, at least in most places, is to change our names on our birth certificates and our gender. It allows us to change our passports. We can change our driver's license to conform with who we are and how we live. And they are wanting to target and attack that.
Yeah, I think I just personally experienced what you just said because like changed my name 2016, gender, everything, all my social security card, driver license, and even neutralization certificate, and somehow California, the state information is not matching rest of my documents. Strange. Yeah, and then I was trying to have the social worker or somebody in the Medi-Cal, it's called benefits cal, to ask them how can I make the change, and whoever they're speaking to on the other side is from the state, and the guy, I think it was the guy, and the guy was giving me so much hard time. They want me to have a court order, which I have, but it's been a long time. I have to dig it. And then they comes down to ask me for my birth certificate. And, I'm from another country, born from another country, and I'm not even a citizenship of that country anymore. There's no way I can get my birth certificate. So I was really, shocked, to be honest with you, because I think it's kind of, even though we're in California right now.
That's surprising. Was that the DMV or
No, it's a state.
a state agency somewhere? Oh,
Yeah, it's not DMV, it's not Social Security, because all these I already
Yeah.
been taken care of. Yeah, so I was kind of
So we need to get to the
surprised.
bottom of that. That's definite. But
Yeah,
imagine a world in which no one can change that. That I have to go
mm,
around with a driver's license that has my old name
right.
and says I'm a man. I'm like,
It's so
okay, nobody mistakes me for a man anywhere, anytime.
right.
Okay, and
Uh-huh.
so that's just cruel.
Right.
It really and truly is cruel.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, I think, what some of this is all about is um, listening to some of the interviews of the author of this bill where she's talking about it's a social contagion and it's a social issue, and how this was a great victory for conservatives in the social wars. And I'm like, how is my existence a social war? It's
Yeah.
like I was medically treated. This was
Right.
this is a real condition. So many people love to say, there are no trans kids, and it's like, well, I know some of them, and so yes, there are. I was one. There are no trans adults. So yes, there are. I mean, you may not like it, but that doesn't mean we don't exist. I mean,
Yeah.
we
We
do.
even have Jess Jennings. Do you know? Have you heard of her? Jess Jennings.
Jess Jennings?
Yeah,
No.
she has like a documentary show. I'm Jess,
Oh.
and she started a show when she's a little girl.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
she's a big
Oh,
girl.
Jazz.
Jazz.
Jazz Jennings. Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
I'm like, oh no.
So yeah, so she's a little girl when she started the whole
Oh yeah,
thing.
and she was one of the people that was on the brief, the amicus brief that I was on to the Eighth Circuit
Mm-hmm.
on the Brandt case out of Arkansas, which we're still waiting for the district court verdict on that. But that was Arkansas made it illegal for trans youth health care.
Mm-hmm.
And the ACLU filed suit against them in federal court. The federal judge issued a temporary injunction prohibiting enforcement of it. Arkansas did not like that, so they appealed to the Eighth Circuit. And as part of amicus briefs, I was contacted, and there was like 62 of us. It was Jazz Jennings and Lana Wachowski and Jenny Boylan and Elliot Page, Chris Mosier, Miss Marjorie, and I got to be a part of that. And Jazz was one of those. And we talk about the joy of trans healthcare and the we go from having gender dysphoria to gender euphoria. And it's really because I totally love being me now, where I've struggled so hard before, and it really is true for so many trans people, and that's what I think some of these people need to see. They need to see that, look, trans people are not miserable, horrible.
Or mental health or anything like that.
We
embrace ourselves, right?
It takes a lot of self introspection and to be able to come to the conclusion that you're trans. I mean, it's not something that somebody does on a whim. That's what I don't seem to understand. They seem to think, oh yeah, oh look, little Jenny is playing with trucks, so let's call her Joey. That's not how it works.
That's how it works. Yeah, so like I say, it all comes down to if they don't know anybody who's trans, they won't understand. Before we closing the show, I heard among our friends you have a retirement plan for doing something great.
Going back and getting politically active, in my home state, and being back, because I have family back there, and I was always going back to Nebraska for my vacations ever since I left to move out here. So it's home to me. It's my home. And so it was kind of interesting getting back and getting involved in politics and hearing the frustration of people about how politics has involved to these, right-wing Republicans, and there were some of them were appointed as senators. So it just got me thinking about, maybe wanting to go home. And I did make a promise to the kids after the bill passed the second round to the third round. It had to wait a couple of days before they could do the final passage. But I promised them that if it passed, I would come back and I would fight for them. And so I've scheduled an appointment with my retirement association but the first date that they had available was in August. So apparently there's a lot of people looking at retiring and wanting to leave LA or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so in August, I'm going to go talk with them and find out. I have been seriously looking at moving back to Nebraska and deciding which legislative district that I want to move into, and potentially run for state legislature back there. So, and it's something I've always kind of wanted to do. I love that system of government, and I hate to see how it got co-opted this last session and what happened with it, because somebody had decided that the most important thing for Nebraska to do in 2023 was ban healthcare for a couple hundred kids.
Yes.
I just don't understand it, because the number of kids
I know
is not like there's a huge number of these trans kids, and so it's really something that I'm considering.
I think, like I said before, I think it's just try to redirect our focus on the real problem of this country, because like you said, there's hundreds. In Tennessee, it's only probably 3 to 4 trans people, trans kids.
And it's like the trans sports bans. It's like, in the state of Utah, they did it. There were five kids that were trans identifying. Only one of them was a trans girl. I think in Nebraska, I think somebody told me that there were 3 requests for waivers. So they want to do all of this stuff to affect 3 kids. They want to do the banning of healthcare to affect a couple hundred kids, maybe 1,000. And so it's just the cruelty of that is in it. And one of the state senators that I talked with, her hang up was that Planned Parenthood offered informed consent HRT for 16 through 18-year-old Nebraska girls and boys, I guess, also. And so she thought that was wrong because there was no requirement for any therapy. And anyway, I told her, I said, I can't believe that this is the deal. I said, I'm probably going to come back, and I'm probably going to, get involved in doing some of this stuff. And I sent her an email after she voted against us, and I told her I understood her position, and I thought she was wrong, and that in the future she'll come back and regret doing that vote. And I said, I'm looking at coming back to Nebraska, and I look forward to working with you on issues like public education funding and middle class tax relief. I mean, there's all kinds of other things that are much more important.
More important, yes.
Then can 100 kids get puberty blockers?
It's just nonsense to me.